Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Whispering Gentleman. So, flick off the lights, sit down in your comfortable chair, and grab a glass of your favorite drink as we dive on into it. My wife bought me a tombstone for my birthday. It's for the grave she wants to bury me in. By Colt Leisure. I'm a cameraman for a popular mixed martial arts organization. Any sports fan should be able to guess which company keeps me employed. It's a great job, where my Bachelor of Arts in Film and Media Studies works to my advantage. The money affords me a comfortable lifestyle. I am paid to have the best view of elite-level hand-to-hand combat. Many would spend a fortune to get an in-person experience of what I see all the time. Hearing the announcer's voice as he calls out the fighters' names never ceases to be any less incredible. The downside is the travel requirements. I'm often far from my house in California for weeks on end. My contract obliges me to do my job in places like Abu Dhabi and the UK. When I do arrive home after a business trip, there was a tradition my wife had where she gifted me things. Laura always gave me small but meaningful items to signify how much she missed me while I was away. These would be on the table in the living room when I arrived. A single flower plucked from one of her walks or a bottle of wine often awaited me. I tried to convince her to halt her kindness a few times throughout the course of our 2.5-year marriage. I reassured her I did not need material objects to feel cared for. She always insisted anyways. My return from an event in New Zealand was when it all began. A 14-hour plane flight left me exhausted as I walked up the front steps. I pulled out my keys, opened the door, and walked into our home. I passed my dusty black carry bag of golf clubs. Laura stood with a smile on her face a few feet away. A butcher knife was in her right hand. "Hey, honey," I said as I tried to hide my unease at the sight of the stainless steel blade. "Why do you have that?" She gave me a blank look before I pointed at the sharp object she clutched. "Oh, silly," she said. "Did you forget? You filmed the pay-per-view on your birthday. Since you weren't here to celebrate, we're going to do it now." She took a few steps towards me. I noticed how on one of the counters behind her in the dining area sat a large butterscotch cake. It had caramel stripes and was already cut. 28 lit candles were dipped into the frosting. The baked confection was in the shape of an octagon with crunchy pretzels wrapped around it to form a cage. "You're very kind," I said. "You didn't have to." "Of course I did. I also got you a present. It's on the couch. You should open it before we eat." I looked over at the surprise she referred to. The physical dimensions of it sent me into a mental whirlwind. I attempted to figure out what could it be. It was 24 by 12 inches in beige wrapping paper. I tried to hoist it up. The package was heavy. It felt like concrete. For a second I thought she had gotten me some kind of workout equipment for our home gym in the basement. I tore the covering apart. Shock coursed through me. I held a tombstone with my name and date of birth carved into it. The day of my death was blank. It had an epitaph. The quote was from my favorite poet, Robert W. Service. "Our breath is brief, and being so, let us make heaven here below, and lavish kindness as we go." I looked up and stared at my wife. Laura had a wide smile on her face, like she expected me to reciprocate her inexplicable positivity over the funeral monument. "You can't be serious," I said. "What's wrong, my love? You don't like it?" I took a long pause and tried to choose my words with careful precision. Why did you buy this? Everybody's going to need one. We're here one second and the next we're not. Some couples do share macabre fascinations, but I would never judge them. But that was never us. I find it morbid, I said. I don't understand. That opinion can't hide the reality of the human condition. Now come to the table, let's eat. I managed to scarf down a piece of cake, but for the rest of the night I was sick to my stomach. Jet lag still plagued me, and I didn't want to end the evening with arguing. I compartmentalized the event and decided to wait until the next day. When I had some rest to confront her, I decided I'd have more confident and delicate demand for an answer. When I turned over in bed, I saw her slept. She had new books on her nightstand. They were all occult texts from Agrippa and Crowley, authors whose names I recognized but knew very little about. She had never been a spiritual person anyway. What changed? I drifted in and out of the night terrors when I slumbered. I never had done before. I tossed, turned, and shivered. When I opened my eyes during a fit of nausea, I saw the headstone. It leaned against the wall of my dresser. The words seemed to stare back at me. She had moved it from downstairs after I had passed out. It had to weigh at least 200 pounds. The physical effort required to get it up the staircase was a sign of intent. She wanted it to be the first thing I saw when I awoke. Morning came, and I went to the kitchen. Laura was there and used our espresso machine. Steam came off the brew. She poured cold milk into the cups of coffee. I saw her put a second jug away beneath the sink. It took me a few seconds to register how it was blue. She had done this with such speediness that I almost failed to notice it. She stuffed it away in the bottom of the cupboard. I sat at the table and she served me a cappuccino and took a seat. I'm not comfortable with my birthday present yesterday, I said. Are you trying to make a veiled threat? She did not respond. I know I'm not here a lot of time, I continued, but I would never cheat on you. You know that. I know you would kill me if I ever did, but that's not the reason I wouldn't. I love you, and I would never hurt you. My absence is a reflection of the financial stability I am building towards. When we do have a child, I want him or her to not want the same things we did when we were younger. I don't know where your passive aggressiveness is coming from. I need you to get rid of it, or tell me what the issue is, so we can move past this like adults. She sipped her coffee. Her eyes seemed to squint at me as though I was someone she was having difficulty recognizing. You didn't like the taste? Laura asked. I worked so hard baking it. The ingredients aren't simple. The design was tough to pull off. I thought it was your favorite flavor. No wonder there are leftovers. I slammed my fist down. The Java in our containers rippled as two small ponds in an earthquake. This has nothing to do with that, I said as my face grew hot. I'm talking about the Tombstone with my name on it. I was under the impression it would be a good memento, she said with a smile. A reminder to never take things for granted. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my temples. Her trying to sugarcoat it is an innocent act only enraged me further. Why are you so happy now? I asked. I've never seen you so at peace before. I make enough money to help you quit your job and never work for that terrible firm again. Your demeanor wasn't even this bright the day I told you you wouldn't have to go back to that cesspool. I'm trying to figure out why you're angry at me and handed me the world's most condescending present. All you do in return is talk about the fleeting nature of existence. You've changed. What happened when I was away? Life is wonderful. We need to make the most of the time we have here. Someone knocked. She stood over and gazed through the peephole. It was the postman. He delivered a package and strode back to his truck, and she went out on the porch. As she bent down to grab the parcel, I went to the sink and swung open the bottom door. A bottle of Xerox brand antifreeze was there. Its cap was loose. A few ounces of its content had been emptied. I dumped the coffee in a trash bin by our refrigerator and felt beads of sweat form across my forehead. This came from the garbage. It has no place in the dining room. Why would she need it while making an espresso? The answer was obvious, but there has never been anything harder for me to accept. Laura was poisoning me. I went up to the bedroom and locked the door. I stared at the window at our suburban street. She talked with a neighbor about the sunny weather while I paced back and forth. I was foolish to do so in the moment, but I thought of all the good times we had together. Our first date at Lake Topaz with a bottle of Pinot Noir. Our vacation in the Caribbean on a luxury cruise ship. The after parties she had attended with me surrounded by athletes and media moguls. I had done my best to spoil and provide a good life for her any way I could. Her way of repaying me was to try and take my life insurance. My value was not enough to her alive. The health payout for my murder was what she was after. The reality of that harsh truth burned every fiber of my being. With her background in law, I knew she could manipulate the system to her advantage after I was dead. She would stage a scene so a toxology report would not even be looked into. I reached into my pocket, unlocked my phone, and dialed 911. What is the location of your emergency? I gave the operator my address. My speech patterns were so broken from a combination of nerves and rage that she had to think I was drunk. She asked for a callback number. I gave it through gritted teeth as I felt my palms dampen with the device pressed against my slick skin. Tell me exactly what happened. My wife is trying to murder me. She's putting coolant in her cooking and drinks. She's serving them to me, believing I won't notice. Sir, I need you to speak slower. I looked out the window again. She was no longer there. Footsteps came up the stairs. Send somebody right away, I said. Honey? Laura called out. Who are you talking to? Should I expect a guest? She shook the knob and tried to enter. I stayed on the line. The dispatcher continued to ask me a variety of questions. Her emergency inquiries lost all incoherence as my stress level rose. Laura banged her fist even harder on the other side. I'm calling the cops, I said with so much ire I felt all my blood rise. I know what you're doing to me. This stops here. A loud bang filled my ears. The center of the door was torn apart. It disintegrated and revealed the outline of my wife's body as she used a golf club to barrel her way in. A hail of splintered drywall hit the carpet with each swing. Laura charged at me with the iron lob wedge raised above her. I tried to sidestep her strike. The end of it grazed my ear and left me dazed. I grabbed the middle and heaved my weight against her until we tumbled down the stairs. Once I had disarmed her at the base of the first step, she scratched me with her nails. Several marks formed below my eyes. The painful burning sensation of the wounds left my vision blurry. I did something I swore I never would. I raised a hand not only to a woman, but the one I walked down the aisle with just a few short years before. When my flat-bottomed part of my palm connected with her nose, I thought the fight was over. She kicked up, and her heel caught my eye. I stumbled in reverse, and the back of my head hit the wall. I blacked out. When I came to, I recognized she had dragged me into the basement. She stood over me with her wedding dress folded over her arms and a butane torch in her right hand. To my left, I saw the jug of antifreeze and a thermos with its top screwed off. I gazed at the ceiling. Laura had disabled our smoke detectors. She laughed as she lit the bridal gown on fire. "I was never happy being with you," she said as she stomped out the last of the flames on the dirt flooring. Police sirens rang out in the distance as I stood and drove my shoulder into her already battered face. She screamed at me as I got on top of her and pinned her to the ground. Law enforcement entered with their guns drawn. She yelled at them with a blood-curdling screech and resisted. 2 of the officers threw her to the ground and placed her in custody. I have remained single since that time. I now have a lifelong distrust of any potential romantic partner. I felt idiotic for not seeing the red flags thrown up by her in the past. What she did to me has made me question my own instincts when it comes to reading people. I had a licensed process server deliver her our divorce paperwork. I was not eager to meet her in Mirror Loma prison. I am still not entitled to an immediate legal separation without any formal proceedings. This angers me. I am not going to risk her getting any assets though, in this life or the next. I went to the hospital to get a handle on the physical damage her poisoning had done. Their results did show some harm. They administered treatment on me in the form of a wonder drug called Antizol. I was lucky. It prevented permanent organ damage within the right amount of time. Shortly after the events, I hawked my wedding ring at a pawn shop and used it for repairs around the home. As I write this post, I stare at that tombstone. It sits by my computer desk. I like how the moon's luminance glints off of it when I cannot fall asleep, which is more often than not the case. I'm going to keep it, since her statement was not wrong. I will need it one day.